The dinner table was still set 2 plates, untouched. Her favorite wine open, breathing for hours. Candle wax hardened mid-drip, like even gravity lost interest in our evening. She didn't notice any of it. She just walked in laughing. Her heels tapped across the hardwood like nothing was broken. Like everything was still exactly the way she left it. Except it wasn't. There was no music playing. No folded laundry on the couch. No pair of scuffed sneakers near the door. The hallway smelled like citrus cleaner and silence. Her fingers brushed the wall out of habit. She looked at the empty hook where my keys used to hang. Then her voice, "Babe." I was already miles away when she said it. She didn't know it yet, but she had walked into a house scrubbed clean of me. My slippers, my coffee mug, the crooked photo of us at the beach, the one she always meant to reframe. All gone. Not stolen. Removed. I didn't take much. Just what belonged to me. Memories, too. I left no scent on the pillow, no strands of hair in the sink, no shirts in the closet. Even the chair I always sat in during her long rants about work? Gone. Just the dent in the carpet where it once stood. She called again. Louder this time. A little confused. Not scared. Not yet. The silence felt louder than her voice. Then she started walking faster. Her shoes echoed against the absence I'd built. Opened the closet. Nothing. Peeked into the drawer where I kept my phone charger and backup glasses. Empty. Bathroom cabinet. Only her things. The house wasn't ransacked. It was dissected. Surgically. She didn't cry. Not at first. Instead, she went to the kitchen and poured herself the wine I bought for us. She stared at the second glass, already full, untouched, and drank from hers anyway. She didn't ask where I went. She asked, "How long have you been planning this?" That's when I knew she understood. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't drama. This was a decision. The same way she decided, at some fancy rooftop restaurant with her boss, to wear perfume she never wears around me. To smile a little too brightly. To laugh that flirty laugh I hadn't heard in months. She didn't cheat with her body. Not yet. But she'd already given away the part of herself I used to hold. So I took mine back. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. And that's how I disappeared from my own marriage. She didn't sleep that night. I know, because I watched. No, not in a creepy way. I wasn't parked outside in the dark or hiding in the bushes. I had planted a small, motion-sensitive camera inside a photo frame months ago, long before any of this happened, back when I still cared whether the dog walker was stealing our packages. I never thought I'd use it to watch the woman I married stumble around a suddenly hollow home, unsure if she'd gone mad or if someone had truly chosen to vanish from her life without a single word. Around 2:47 a.m., she sat on the floor in the middle of the living room, barefoot, staring at the spot where my chair used to be. She didn't cry. Jocelyn wasn't a crier. She looked angry. Not heartbroken. Not abandoned. Angry. Like someone who just realized the world might not revolve around her as much as she believed it did. Like she couldn't compute the fact that I left without slamming a door, without one final, pitiful plea to be noticed. That was the thing with her, she expected noise. She thrived on tension. Arguments, messy confrontations, tears soaked into throw pillows. But I gave her nothing. Not a note. Not even a clue. Just a clean slate and an unspoken truth. She had already pushed me out long ago. I had simply followed her lead. The next morning, she did what she always did when something didn't go her way. She performed. Cleaned the house like she was preparing for a magazine shoot. Lit candles. Changed into a soft sweater and wore her hair in that loose bun she always saved for reset days. She called her mom. Said something about me being overly sensitive and probably needing a dramatic walk around, like I was some kind of anxious dog. I muted the sound. I couldn't stomach hearing her rewrite the story in real time. She even texted me. For messages. Del, this isn't funny. You're being ridiculous. You took your electric razor? Really? Call me. Right now. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a package. One small box. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid of the two of us from our trip to Maine, the one where I got stung by a jellyfish and she made fun of me for limping like an old man. On the back, I had written only 6 words in black ink. You left me first. Remember that. I shipped it overnight. Tracked it until it hit the doorstep. Then I shut off the feed. I didn't need to see her open it. I already knew what her face would look like, that mix of guilt, confusion, and the creeping horror of consequences finally arriving, uninvited. She thought she was the storm, that I would always stand still and take it, like some fragile tree meant to bend in her weather. but I had become something else. Not louder, not colder, just gone. And the silence left in my place? It's louder than anything she's ever screamed. The next time she left the house, it wasn't for work. It was around 10:15 in the morning, just after the package arrived. She didn't even change clothes. The sweater was still wrinkled at the elbows, and her keys were shaking in her hand. I could tell because I still had access to the security cam in the garage, the one I installed after she left the back gate open 3 nights in a row, and blamed it on raccoons. She got in the car like a woman who wasn't sure whether to chase something or run from it. And me? I was already gone, sure, but not gone enough. A few weeks before all this, I'd set up a paper trail. Not because I planned to vanish, but because I knew I'd need to eventually. Bank accounts opened in a new name. An old friend from high school, Bruce, who owed me a favor from a very dumb night in college, let me register a P.O. box under his business address in another state. I even sold a few of my vinyls quietly online and saved the cash in a fireproof box. Jocelyn never noticed. She never asked what I did on Tuesdays, the one night a week she stayed late for strategy sessions at Everett's place. She went straight to my sister's house. That's when I knew she was panicking. Lauren and I have never been close. She's younger, sharper, way more protective of me than I deserve. She always hated Jocelyn, not for anything specific, just that gut feeling younger sisters have when they know someone is slowly hollowing out the brother they used to admire. According to Lauren, Jocelyn showed up all smiles at first. Knocked like everything was fine. Said she was just checking in because I'd apparently been moody the past few months and maybe having some kind of midlife spiral. Lauren let her in, sat her down, poured her tea, and then refused to answer a single question about where I was. Jocelyn, being Jocelyn, got frustrated within minutes. Said things like, "He's so dramatic, and he'll come crawling back once he calms down." She even laughed, in someone else's living room, as if this was all just another little bump in her flawless curated world. Lauren told her to leave. Jocelyn didn't take it well. There was shouting. Something about not helping your brother, and this is our marriage, not yours. My sister recorded the whole thing, sent it to me later with a simple caption. She doesn't get it. Not even a little. That was the moment it hit me. Jocelyn wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the version of me that made her life easier. The guy who cleaned up messes, kept the lights on, nodded at the right times, didn't ask questions. I wasn't her partner. I was her convenience. And now that I was gone, really gone, she was spiraling not out of love, but out of disruption. Still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. Because that night, she tried something I didn't think she was capable of. She called Everett. Not just called, she FaceTimed him. And for the first time in all the recordings I had quietly stored on the cloud, she didn't flirt. She didn't smile. She didn't adjust her hair for the camera. She cried. "Everett," she said, voice cracking like glass. "He's gone. And I don't know what to do. I think he's been watching me." He stared at her, silent for a moment. Then he said the most chilling thing I've ever heard. "Did you check the safe?" And that's when I knew. They had secrets between them I'd never imagined. Secrets buried so deep that even she looked startled to hear those words come from his mouth. She stammered. Said she didn't know what he meant. He smiled, like a man with leverage. "If he's gone, Jocelyn," Everett said, leaning forward, "then you have a much bigger problem than a broken marriage." She hung up. Quickly. Panicked. The screen went black. But I didn't stop watching. I couldn't. Because somehow, the moment I thought I had finally walked away was exactly when I stepped into something much darker. I don't think she even remembered the combination. The safe was wedged behind the coats in our guest room closet, hidden behind a false panel I installed myself back when we thought investing in security would make us feel like adults. It was the kind of thing you buy after watching too many heist movies, then forget about when life gets too busy. Jocelyn only ever used it once, maybe twice. I kept it for emergencies. She called it overkill. But now, it was 2:13 a.m., and she was kneeling on the floor in silence, trying to remember 6 digits that apparently never mattered to her until tonight. She failed the first 3 times, slammed her palm against the keypad on the 4th. And then, just before giving up, she typed in the numbers I always used when I couldn't think of anything else, our wedding date. It clicked, and the door swung open. I watched it all on my phone. The camera was discreet, tucked into the smoke detector overhead. She never liked smoke detectors. Said they clashed with the aesthetic. But I kept it there because I knew someday I'd need to see the truth from above, without filters, without eye contact. Just the brutal honesty of a person alone in a room with their consequences. She pulled the contents out one by one. First, the passports. Then the envelope of cash I'd saved up over the last year. She barely glanced at it. What she really wanted was underneath, a black folder sealed with a red elastic band. Her hands hesitated, then opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Printed. Tangible. Not digital. She flipped through them quickly at first, then slower. One by one. Until her face changed. That thing she always did when she was caught off guard, where her jaw tightens and her nose twitches slightly. I hadn't seen that expression in years. Not since I caught her lying about where she was the night she said she had food poisoning, and instead, her location pinged in the parking lot of a hotel 45 minutes from home. These photos weren't of her, though. They were of Everett. With women. Different ones. Some clearly employees. Some not. And in two of the photos, blurry but unmistakable, Jocelyn. Not touching him. But there. Present. Watching. Smiling. In the corner of the folder, I had tucked a USB stick. She saw it, hesitated, then picked it up like it was radioactive. That USB contained hours of audio. Not just recordings of our house, but of Everett's office. I had borrowed a digital pen recorder from a friend who worked in corporate risk. Jocelyn didn't know I'd ever been in Everett's building, let alone near his desk. But I had. And I'd left the pen there during one of her late strategy sessions. Picked it up 2 days later. She never noticed. And what it recorded wasn't just unprofessional. It was illegal. Corporate fraud. Wire misrepresentation. Bribery. Names. Dates. Amounts. Proof. Enough to ruin him. Enough to bury her with him if she'd been involved. But I didn't send it to the police. Not yet. Because I needed her to see it first. I needed her to know that everything she thought she controlled had already been collected, collated, and sealed. Her hands trembled as she stared at that little piece of plastic. She put the folder down, closed the safe, locked it again, even though it was useless now. And then she sat there, on the floor, in the dark, with no one left to lie to. I turned off the feed, because I had seen enough. The story had shifted. I hadn't just walked away from her. I had walked straight into the center of something toxic, something that had always been rotting underneath the surface of our perfect little life. And now, Jocelyn knew she wasn't the only one holding secrets. But the difference between hers and mine? I never needed to lie to win. She didn't go to work the next day. I know because I was watching the driveway and her phone logs, both of which stayed cold all morning. No calls to the office, no messages to Everett. Just one unexpected name appeared in her outgoing list, Renee. That stopped me cold. I hadn't heard that name in almost 5 years. And for good reason. Renee used to be Jocelyn's best friend. They were inseparable until one New Year's Eve, when something happened that no one ever explained. I only remember what came after, the screaming match behind closed doors, the week Jocelyn refused to speak a single word about it, and the way Renee vanished from our lives like someone had erased her on purpose. Jocelyn never brought her up again. Not once. She called her a traitor, but never elaborated. And now, out of nowhere, she was calling her. The camera feed in the kitchen caught the tail end of the conversation. Jocelyn was pacing, barefoot, wearing a hoodie that used to be mine. Her voice was shaky. Not scared, not yet, but uncertain, like she was asking for help from a ghost. I just need to know what he said to you, Jocelyn whispered into the phone. Back then. I know you remember. Did he mention me? Or us? Renee, please. I don't care about the fight anymore. She stopped, listened. Her face crumpled. Then she whispered, oh my God. She hung up. No follow-up. No text. Just silence. She stood there for maybe 30 seconds, phone still in her hand, then dropped it on the counter like it had burned her. I watched her go straight into the bedroom, yank open the closet, and dig out her old laptop from the back shelf. The one she hadn't used since switching to the company MacBook. I knew what she was doing even before she powered it on. See, what Jocelyn never realized, what most people never realize, is that deletion doesn't mean disappearance. Not when someone like me lives in your shadow. Quiet. Observant. Waiting. While she searched, I was already 10 steps ahead. Because Renee had reached out to me first. 2 days before I left, I got a message from a burner email. It was short. No greeting. No signature. Just 6 words. She lied about what really happened. I almost ignored it. Thought it was spam. But the email address had one thing that caught my eye, the numbers at the end. They were the same last 4 digits of Renee's old number. Curious, I replied. What followed wasn't dramatic. Just one voicemail attachment. A recording from a night 5 years ago. Jocelyn's voice. Slurred, but clear. She was talking about Everett. Not in admiration. Not in fear. But in agreement. She knew what he was doing. Not just to the company, but to the women. She laughed about it. Said things like, they want something for nothing. Everett just cuts through the act. She joked about how naive the interns were. How easy it was to play innocent when the power dynamics turned ugly. My wife, the woman I defended to my family, to strangers, even to myself, wasn't just looking the other way. She was helping him hide it. Renee found out. Tried to warn her. They fought. Jocelyn cut her out. And now, all these years later, Renee had broken her silence, not for revenge, but because she saw my name on the news in a small community press release. About a man who'd gone missing from a quiet suburban home, leaving behind no note, no sign of struggle, just absence. And that was the push she needed to speak up. So as Jocelyn sat there, eyes wide in front of her dusty screen, trying to locate the files I had already downloaded and encrypted weeks ago, I realized something deeply unsettling. She wasn't afraid of being caught. She was afraid of being seen fully, for the first time, without the armor of her charm, her excuses, her curated victimhood. And now, for the first time since I left, she looked truly, painfully alone. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was a strange, bitter ache. Not because she didn't love me. I'd accepted that long ago. But because I had finally become the one thing she couldn't spin, silence, or erase. I had become the consequence. And she had no idea what I planned to do next. She didn't pack a bag. Didn't grab her passport or jewelry. No cash, no disguise. Just her phone, her keys, and a folder, that same black folder I had left in the safe. She clutched it like a loaded weapon as she walked out the front door and slammed it shut behind her with a kind of finality that said, I'm done hiding. But she wasn't going to the police. I knew that the moment I saw where she was headed. She drove to Everett's house. I recognized the neighborhood immediately, one of those artificially perfect suburbs where the houses all look like polished simulations of real homes, where everything is granite and glass but nothing feels like it was meant to be lived in. His driveway was spotless, his lawn razor-cut. Even his garbage bins were tucked away like shameful secrets. She parked at the curb and sat in the car for 5 whole minutes. No music. No calls. Just breathing, shallow and rapid. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she grabbed the folder, got out, and walked straight to his door like she owned the place. There was no camera inside Everett's house. I hadn't gotten that far. But the doorbell cam he installed, which I'd hacked long ago, gave me audio. What I heard didn't match what I expected. Everett, we need to talk, she said, calm but breathless. He didn't invite her in. There was a long pause. The wind picked up slightly. Then his voice, low and coiled. You shouldn't be here. I know what you did, she said. To them. To me. Another pause. A scoff. To you? He laughed. Jocelyn, don't pretend this wasn't your idea half the time. There it was. The admission. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said, Delmar has it all. The audio. The photos. He knows. Everett's tone dropped. Where is he? He left. He vanished. I don't know how much more he's planning, but I think he's waiting for something. For us to slip. You dragged me into this? Everett hissed. You dragged yourself. I'm cleaning it up. She shoved the folder into his chest. I heard the slap of it against fabric and turned to walk away. But he stopped her with one sentence. If he releases that audio, we both burn. She didn't look back. Just got in her car, slammed the door, and drove off. Tires screeching like she wanted the whole street to hear her fury. Back in my motel, I froze. Because this wasn't her trying to protect herself anymore. This was Jocelyn going nuclear, lighting everything on fire just to see who would jump first. She'd turned on Everett, exposed him, maybe even threatened him. But not for justice. No, not Jocelyn. She wanted to control the spiral. To her, this wasn't about guilt or morality. It was about survival. About narrative. About staying one move ahead. And that's when I realized I had underestimated her. Because that night, at 9:36 p.m., I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. The message that followed chilled me to my bones. Delmar. I don't know where you are, but you need to listen to me. Everett isn't just going to sit back and let this happen. He's not afraid of me. He's afraid of you. And if he finds you first, you're not going to have time to regret this. Please, just talk to me. I'll tell you everything. I promise. Click. I played it twice. Not because I was afraid, But because I wasn't sure which part disturbed me more, the sound of her voice finally cracking with real fear, or the possibility that she wasn't lying this time. It was the first time since I disappeared that I felt something close to danger. Not the emotional kind. The kind that starts with shadows moving where they shouldn't be and ends with your name being whispered by someone who should never know it. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who was really hunting who anymore. I woke up to the sound of tires crunching gravel just outside my window. It was 3:41 a.m. The kind of hour when the world feels unnaturally still, not peaceful, but hollow. Like something's watching, and whatever it is doesn't blink. I had dozed off in the motel armchair, laptop still open beside me, half a cup of cold coffee on the nightstand. At first, I thought it was just another guest pulling in late. But then I heard it, the engine idled. Never turned off. And it didn't move for 10 solid minutes. I slipped out of bed without turning on the lights. Moved to the corner where the curtain was already cracked just wide enough to see through without being seen. A dark SUV. Headlights off. Driver's side window open. No visible plates. The silhouette inside was motionless. Watching. Not browsing their phone. Not fiddling with anything. Just watching. The motel manager knew me only as Martin, a quiet guy who paid in cash, kept to himself, and never requested cleaning. But this wasn't a place for tourists or business people. This was a place where people came to disappear or wait for something they didn't want to face. And in that moment, I wasn't sure which of those people I had become. I powered down the laptop, grabbed the burner phone, and stepped into the bathroom to run the shower, not to bathe, but to make noise, just in case they were listening through the walls. I had become paranoid, yes, but not without reason, especially after what Renee sent me earlier that day, a file I hadn't asked for, one she said she had held on to just in case. It was a copy of an old voicemail from Jocelyn, dated a few months before she and Everett even started working together. Her voice was different, almost hopeful. She was asking Renee for advice about how to approach someone powerful without seeming desperate. She talked about wanting to finally take control of her life, to stop letting Delmar be the reason she stays stuck. I sat down on the floor, playing it again and again. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. It meant she'd been planning an exit long before I ever thought of one. Except hers wasn't physical. It was emotional, psychological. She had been checking out piece by piece, like a tenant slowly moving furniture out of an apartment before the lease is up. That's what hurt the most. Not the lies. Not even the betrayal. But the quiet strategy of it all. Like I was just a placeholder until she could position herself next to someone shinier. Back outside, the SUV finally pulled away, but not quickly. The driver coasted down the parking lot with calculated slowness, as if to say, "We saw you. We'll be back." I packed immediately. I was done hiding in plain sight. I left the room as it was, didn't check out, didn't erase anything. Just walked out with a backpack and the USB drive tucked in my sock. My next stop wasn't a destination. It was a person. Bruce, the same old college friend who helped set up the mail drop, lived in a dry, low-key town in Kansas. He owed me more than one favor, and I knew his house was the kind of place that didn't show up on GPS without serious effort. I drove through the night, checking mirrors more than the road. Every SUV looked familiar. Every turn felt like a trap. But the worst part? I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt hollow, exhausted. Like something had died and I was just dragging around the bones. It wasn't until I arrived, dust rising behind my tires on Bruce's long dirt driveway, that I realized what I had to do. The recordings, the photos, the folder, all of it. I was going to send everything. Not to the police. Not to the media. But to the interns. The assistants. The women who had been talked about in passing like forgettable detours on Everett's climb up the ladder. The ones who were silenced by HR departments and NDA contracts and casual humiliation. They deserved to know what Jocelyn and Everett had built their little empire on. But before I could hit send, my phone lit up again. Another voicemail. Blocked number. This time, it was only 3 words. They found Renee. No context. No explanation. Just that. And suddenly, the danger wasn't theoretical anymore. It was real. Right here. And whether I liked it or not, I had been pulled into something deeper than a broken marriage. This wasn't about love, or revenge, or even escape. It was about truth, and the people willing to kill it. I didn't move for almost a full minute after hearing the voicemail. I just sat in Bruce's guest room, blinds shut tight, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Those 3 words, they found Renee, hung in the air like smoke. Not a threat. Not a plea. A statement. Cold. Clean. Final. But it didn't break me. Because I realized something in that moment. Something I hadn't allowed myself to fully feel until then. I wasn't afraid anymore. For weeks, I had lived like a ghost, drifting through motel rooms, watching her life like a stranger. I'd sunk into the shadows, documenting, recording, retreating. But now, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't passive. I had evidence. I had names. And most importantly, I had purpose. So I stood up. And I finished the job. I uploaded everything, every file, every photo, every conversation. I created a secure archive with restricted access and sent it to 12 women whose names had been whispered into office corners, women discarded and discredited and quietly paid off. I sent it to one former employee who had moved across the country after amicably resigning, and another who had changed her name after filing a report that was inconclusive. Each message was simple. You were never crazy. You were never alone. Here's everything. And then I waited. The wave hit faster than I expected. By the end of the day, 4 of them had replied. Not with thanks, with fire. With questions. With plans. One of them already had a lawyer. Another worked in compliance at a different firm and had contacts in state oversight. They didn't want to ruin lives. They wanted truth. By that evening, someone leaked the audio anonymously. It landed on a small accountability blog, not major news, not flashy, but loud enough to spark interest. Within 24 hours, it had made its way to corporate legal. 2 board members resigned. Everett went silent. Jocelyn deactivated her social accounts. HR opened an internal review. And just like that, the kingdom they built, the polished image, the careful hierarchy, the untouchable charm began to crack. But that wasn't the real ending. The real ending came 2 weeks later, when I got a knock at the door. I was still at Bruce's place, but planning to leave soon. I had booked a tiny rental in Oregon, a 1-bedroom near the coast. I was going to write again. Just for myself. Nothing serious. Nothing published. The knock was soft. Uncertain. I opened the door. It was Jocelyn. No makeup. Hair tied back. Holding nothing. She looked like a woman who had finally run out of mirrors to check. Hi, she said quietly. I didn't move. She looked down, then back at me. I'm not here to ask for anything. I wanted to say I know. I know what I did. And I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed to face you. Not the camera. Not the silence. You. I let her speak. She admitted everything. The ambition. The manipulation. The things she justified. The women she ignored. The stories she buried to climb a little higher. She didn't cry. And neither did I. When she finished, I nodded once. I don't hate you, I said. That surprised her. Maybe it surprised me too. But I'm not coming back, I added. You don't get to choose when I matter again. She nodded. Accepted it. Took one last look, not dramatic, not desperate. Just final. And then she left. No drama. No shouting. Just the sound of gravel under her tires as she pulled away. I stood in the doorway for a while after that, watching the empty road, letting the stillness settle in. And then I smiled. Because somehow, in the chaos, in the mess of betrayal and silence and burned bridges, something unexpected had happened. I had come back to myself. And this time, I wasn't anyone's placeholder. I wasn't part of anyone's backup plan. I was just free,